Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conrad, and this show is where we hear the real stories from real people changing the world. From everyday people to the top celebrities, all the conversations are real, raw, and always unscripted. Thank you for joining me today. Now let's get to today's guest. All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted from the brand new, hopefully sponsored studios here at my house in the basement, but hopefully sponsored soon, Unscripted Studios. But all that doesn't matter. What matters right now is, as I ask the great Darren Carter, I'm going to ask my guests, where do you go when you want to get live?
Wow. Where do you want to go? In the time of a pandemic, in my living room to watch television.
Man, the answer is be high, man. Come on. Has it been that long? No, all right. So my guest today, goodness, I am really, I've been looking forward to this, been chasing this guy for a long time. I think his story is going to be amazing. And I can't wait to catch up and chat. And there may or may not be a few surprises up my sleeve. We'll see. We'll see what happens over the next, who knows how long we're going to do this. But so let my guest introduce himself, and then let me brag on him a little bit. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I'm Edward Buchanan. I am based in Milano, Italy. So I'm on the other side of the world. I'm essentially a fashion designer. I'm a creative consultant and creative director, but I'm a fashion designer. And I've been living abroad for 25 years-ish. Crazy, outrageous.
Crazy.
But my life is the creative process. So, I'm here, I'm working and happy, and life is moving.
Awesome. Well, my first surprise might have just popped in, and I think this may be happening a lot during our podcast. So,
gosh,
I have no idea what's about to happen. Hold on, hold on. I honestly don't know. There's a lot of gap, and so if people are listening, just hang on, because I think we have a guest joining us here on the Zoom that. We'll see what happens in a minute. I honestly don't know. So let's just see what happens.
Oh my gosh.
Well, while we're waiting, because right now it just says Zoom user, so I'm not even sure who's joining us. I have a few ideas, but and it is so good to see you again. It is so good to see your face and catch up. And man, it has been a minute since we graduated from high school, but from afar, whether it be on social media, thank God for social media, right? Because that's where I got to catch up and see all that you're doing and all that's happening with you. So, man, I am so happy to see you and see your success, because I remember back in the day, if we go back, so Eddie and I actually we're friends. I don't want to say besties, but man, we were pretty close.
I'm not close. Yeah. We were tight.
We're tight, right? Tight's very tight. A lot of great memories every day in school. And hang on one second. Let me see, because this is the first time I've ever done this. So this is just for you, man. Let me see what happens here. Let me see if I can unmute whoever this is. All right, I'm not sure who our guest is. Can our guest say who they are? And Eddie and I are on here. Who is our guest?
Hey, fellas, it's Andrew or Andy.
Andy.
Jordan is our guest, Mr. Eddie Buchanan. Wow.
What's up, brothers?
What's going on? This is amazing. So our guest today is one of our Bedford High, also alumni, classmates, friends, and a part of, what do we want to call it? The Richmond Brothers Randall Crew? Is that what we want to call this?
The Richmond Brothers. Andy.
Oh. Yeah.
What's going on?
Let me see if I can drop my Wi-Fi and just data. Hold up. All right. Oh shoot.
You gotta love Zoom, man. You gotta love it.
Well,
you gotta love it.
I'm kind of like in between. I'm dropping my daughter off at bowling. She's a bowler.
And you're not going to go bowling with her?
I do once in a while, but she's on the varsity team, and so it's a thing. And Dad's got to stay away, apparently.
shoo you out the door.
A little bit. So I'm just an Uber driver, basically. Get her there, and yeah.
I still don't have a driver's license, actually. So.
Hey, you know what?
Come on.
That's not the end of the world.
I don't.
Come on.
I don't. Aaron, I don't have a driver's license. I haven't driven. I mean, when I was in New York City, I never had to drive.
Right.
I think I had a temporary driver's license when I was in Columbus. And I remember slightly borrowing the car of my roommate at the time. And I was going into like a fast food restaurant. And I remember driving into the side of a car. No one got hurt, but it's not my thing, I think, driving.
That's
well,
all right.
Our audience that's not watching, I always try to remember, I've got an audio and a video audience. Our audience that is not watching this, we have a guest with us that's still trying to work out some Wi-Fi issues, but the three of us, and possibly others, I don't know, we'll see. The three of us used to work at a place called Richmond Brothers. Some of y'all might remember the suit store in pretty much every mall. And Eddie, actually, I think it was you that got me the job, and I came in with this sweet mullet. So I mentioned on my podcast, my sweet mullet, many a day. And it was so long, it was down to my shoulders after my freshman year of college. And but I felt bad because I couldn't work in a suit store and have a sweet mullet. So I showed up the first day to work after interviewing one day with the sweet mullet, and I had cut it all off. And the guy was like, "Who is this guy?" But the three of us used to work at Richmond Brothers at Randall Park
Mall.
Right? Those were great days. Those were great days. What do you guys remember from those days?
Richmond Brothers is like the precursor to Brooks Brothers. No, it's like, that was like
It's a low key Brooks Brothers.
Exactly.
Very low key.
Right. I just remember having to straighten the dress pants every night on those racks, on the circle racks before we left. And it was the worst. It was just the absolute worst.
We had to count. We had to count every suit every night.
Every suit.
Exactly.
You had to count all the suits and sport coats.
That's right.
Every night.
The worst.
Sure, it was all there.
Right.
Yeah.
Those days, those retail days in America, for me, I mean, I didn't necessarily have an idea that I was going to end up going in fashion. It was never about fashion. It was just about popular culture to me. But I think that a lot of those years, working in retail at Richmond Brothers and in Columbus, I was working at Benetton. Those retail years were quite important, I think, in terms of my trajectory into fashion. I think those, using retail and selling clothing and touching clothing and being in the atmosphere of clothing, and I think it all leads up to where I was heading. I think at that time I had no idea even what a fashion designer was.
Right.
But I think once I finished school in Columbus, and then I moved to New York. Finally, I was kind of full speed ahead, I think.
Right. You know what I think your inspiration was?
Who was?
Marty, the tailor in the back, who smoked a cigar the whole time he was working on clothes. Ashes falling all over the suits.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to say the fashion thing clearly passed me by. Even working in a suit store, it didn't help me at all. So I don't know.
So, Aaron, because you know what, people always say that. People always say I'm not into fashion or I'm not fashion because you think that when you talk about style and fashion, it has to be something dramatic. But I think we all make choices when we wake up in the morning. You make a choice in the type of underwear you like to wear. You make a choice in the type of baseball cap you like to wear. So those choices are based on obviously personal interest and personal comfort. I'm more interested in personal style as I am to being a dictator. A fashion designer doesn't necessarily be a dictator. I think what we have to understand in terms of working with clothing and being within the atmosphere of design is that people want to feel comfortable in what they like. Of course, we can give suggestions, as design and from the profession of design, but I think everyone knows what they like and what they like to put on their body.
Right. True that.
Somehow.
Well, there's
There
Andy.
you are.
There I am.
See Andy.
There
There he is.
I'm posting up in the car.
It's awesome. I love every part of that. I really do. Well, you guys will remember this. Well, you may not remember. What you will remember is that Andy was the DJ at Richmond Brothers. Remember, we had the little CD player or whatever it was because we didn't have iPods and iPhones and all that stuff back then. So Andy would bring in just the jams and introduce me in particular to stuff. And I was going to share this with you, Eddie. I remember standing around a pant rack one day talking about 92.3 and the top 40. And you said, man, Aaron, there's more to life than 92.3. Anybody from
there is actually. There was.
I swear to God, I've never forgotten that to this day. And now my catalog is huge. Thank you to Eddie. He introduced me to a whole new world of a lot of other music besides Pop 40 and Debbie Gibson.
That was still there too. No, music ended up being, music anyway, Aaron was important for us and Andy was important for us in high school as well, but music ended up being, my second leg as well. I think it's the creative process for me without music. And in fact, I'm probably still listening to the same things I was listening to back then. Things haven't changed. I'm very old school with music. I don't get this this kind of new wave. I'm experimental, but I'm sure if you looked on my computer at my music, you'd probably see some of the same things that you were seeing in 1988.
Awesome.
Or 87 for that matter.
My wife came home
Hey,
for
Andy.
lunch. Hey. My wife came home for lunch and was watching The Crown, the next series. And I was in the kitchen making something. And the soundtrack came on. It was The Cure. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, Robert.
Dude, that's the good stuff.
Cure.
Yeah.
That's our time, man. That's our time.
It is. It is. Yeah.
And then
I lived
the shift for me from Cleveland to Columbus, because I don't know if you knew. I ended up going to Columbus after Cleveland. I went to school in Columbus, Columbus College of Art and Design, and which is where you're living, no?
Right. Yep.
And so that opened up a whole other world for me. Because surrounded obviously by extreme creativity. The nightlife. It's a college town. Columbus was a fantastic place to. It was my definitely my let's say foundation, my real foundation into becoming an adult somehow. It was a good experience. I haven't been back in years, but it was a nice place.
Yeah, well,
and I was going to say, and I think Andy probably was a part of these escapades as well. I used to live for Mondays when Eddie would come into class and tell me about the Agora over the weekend.
The Akron Agora.
The Akron Agora. Andy, were you ever part of the Akron Agora visits?
I think I may have popped down there once or twice, but not a regular.
Please.
No.
We were at the Akron Agora.
I was.
I do remember always having to have my mom drop us off because I couldn't drive. I didn't have a license.
Right. And, still don't have a license.
I still don't have a license. So, but wow, man, that you brought back I haven't thought of the Akron Agora in ages.
Well, I wasn't allowed to go, so I had to live through you guys. I lived for Monday. Eddie, tell me about what happened this weekend at the Agora. And I had to have these visions of me possibly one day going to the Agora because I wasn't allowed to go. So I had to stay home.
No, that was like, that was our, the teen scene, so it was, what I always found interesting, and it probably is the same in discotheques today. I don't really go out so much anymore, but it was always based on these kind of little cliques. So you had the progressive kids over here, you had the hip hoppers over here, you had the poppers over here, but somehow it was really beautiful how they all existed in this one little box, Mm-hmm. There was never really any much drama there, but I was always quite inspired by that atmosphere. I think it was like also like that was like right before we went off and went into the rest of our lives. So that was like a really nice time.
Yeah, and you've started to kind of tell your story, Eddie. I think that's really a lot of what we wanted to do this for today. But Andy as well. Like, I think Andy. I think if I remember right, didn't you move into some not fashion design, but with Richmond Brothers? You moved into a career with them, doing help me out. There's probably a word, right?
Yeah, window dressing.
Window dressing, right? So
yeah.
So I mean, all of us. Again, it passed me, but you two clearly had a path. And Andy, you're doing photography now, right? So I think those early days, even at old Randall Mall, where my car got stolen twice, those were good days, right? They maybe that's why I'm not into fashion, is because my car got stolen twice while working summers at Richmond Brothers. But for you guys, I mean, that did, those jobs, we can't pass by those early jobs, because I think they do launch us into something else. Wouldn't you guys agree? I mean, Eddie, you've already touched on it, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, but if I think about Andy, I mean, he was always into photography. I mean, I always remember the Ansel Adams hanging in your house, and we would talk about your parents and those. So there was, I wasn't surprised to find, his kind of shift into that. And we were both, and it was very interesting is that Andy wasn't visual merchandising, but that's how I actually started in design, is through visual merchandising. Because when I was in Columbus, Ohio, I was working at Benetton, and then I was working at the Gap, and I was only working in visual display. So I was doing window dressing. And when I decided that I wanted to move to New York, I had the Gap contact one of the stores in New York City, and that's how I got my transfer. So I knew I wanted to go back into school after finishing Columbus College of Art and Design. And so I was a window dresser. That's how I learned my trade, That's how I learned what it was like to put things together, what it was like to feel. I mean, it was from a casual perspective. I ended up moving to luxury goods, but, I think we both had that experience,
Right.
And that's the creative process. So I'm sure Andy can speak on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a reluctant creative, I guess. I've never felt like I owned or wore the artist badge. One of my peers one time, we were talking about that, and he's like, well, just you're more of a craftsman, like a carpenter would be, or a fine finished work, something like that. So I feel like I identify a little bit more with that. I wanted to circle back to something about Eddie and his path growing up or moving through school and all that. Like, how different would it be, or what would be different in today's, with the runway shows and all that, the competition shows? Like, that's so interesting. I mean, maybe you love them, maybe you hate them, maybe they're, I mean, they're productions, no doubt, of course, right? Yeah. They got to edit it for the drama.
Sure. That's a part of the process. I mean, I tell you what I do is, I'm a designer's designer. So the path and the let's say the step to step was quite interesting for me, because once I decided that I was going to major in fashion design, I went back to Parsons, and I was already a great illustrator. I loved drawing. I mean, since I was a child, that I was always drawing. So that was a part of it. But for me, I was a creative. Yes, I was an artist. And design came after that. And I always think in design, in terms of design, they always say, a great design you can turn any way. If it's a great design, you can turn it upside down, you can turn it this way, and it's always going to look good. And that was kind of my perspective. Fashion design for me came as an expression, yes, but when I moved into it, it was just like me doing an illustration. My medium was clothing. I was interested in making clothing and the creation of clothing and the draping of clothing, but it was my art. It was like a painting for me. So when I actually, while I was doing visual merchandising, while I was at Parsons in New York, I got contacted by a window dresser who was working for Giorgio Armani, Giorgio Armani being the Italian fashion mega, mega everything to the fashion world, especially in the 90s. So it was an opportunity for me to actually find my way into a luxury setting. So I was doing window dressing for Giorgio Armani. I did that for years. I actually did that in order to pay through my way through school. So I was working somehow full-time as I was going to school full-time. So Giorgio Armani was my first real experience an introduction to the fashion world. What was an important part of that period for me also, and we circle back to this again, is nightlife. I was going out a lot. I was meeting a lot of people, whether they be other designers or other creatives or other models. So I was kind of being entangled into this world. The real thing started to happen when I finished school. I won what's called this gold thimble. So I did really well in school. I was offered scholarships to work in America, but somehow I knew that I wanted to go elsewhere. I had gone through New York, and I love New York City. It was my, if Cleveland and Columbus was my foundation, I really became an adult in New York City. I really became, kind of a full-fledged responsible adult. In Columbus, I got all of my partying and crazy college out of the way. When I went to school in New York City, I was super focused. I graduated in a safe place. I was feeling good, but I wanted to go elsewhere. It just so happened that a friend of mine was working for a company doing windows, once again, doing windows for a company called Bottega Veneta. Bottega Veneta is a luxury goods company, also based in Italy. They started out making these kind of woven bags. I wasn't really necessarily into it at the time. I didn't realize what I was getting into. I was very green, but I put together this portfolio. I sent it to them, and I met with them in New York. And a month after that, I was flying to Italy as the design director for this company. Now, I can kind of start to parallel these things, because what ended up happening after that is that was my first introduction to luxury goods. So in terms of fashion, we have luxury goods, which is your luxury top level. Then you have contemporary, and then you have mass market. And there's all these different levels. So I started really working in luxury goods, and I kind of stayed in luxury goods. That gave me the possibility to learn the craft, to learn the materials, to learn the insides and outs of what I was doing. I ended up coming back into contemporary and back into casual because I started working with celebrities. So those years went by, and during those years, I ended up working with Sean Combs on projects. I ended up working with Jennifer Lopez on projects. I never intended on working with celebrities. It became a part of the work that I do because, as I said, I was a craftsman. So, a lot of times those houses and those celebrities are looking for people who know the craft that they can collaborate with. So the trail has been long, but it's been a super amazing experience. And the fashion shows, Andy, are a part of the process. It is the last part of the process. We know fashion shows today are marketing, and it gets the consumer excited about what they're seeing. But at the end of the day, probably 80% of what you see on the runways are not what we actually buy in the store. Mm-hmm. So those drive the business. They drive the consumer to be interested. I don't know, if Jennifer Lopez creates a line, which I was designing a line for her, and at the end of the day, young consumers that are interested in Jennifer Lopez maybe go to a store and they buy a fragrance. So even if she has, a fur jacket on her runway, or a faux fur jacket on her runway that could cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, the consumer actually will go into the store and they say, we love Jennifer Lopez, we love her music, let's buy Glow, a fragrance.
Did you design the infamous Jennifer Lopez dress from whatever it was, the Grammys?
I did not. That was not my responsibility. That was actually designed by a designer named Gianni Versace. He is actually deceased. His sister took over the business, but Versace, I don't know if you know Versace, that was that dress then. When I was working with her, we were working on a few projects, but it was a collection called Sweet Face, which was kind of her higher line. And it was funny. I tell you, when I got contacted by Jennifer, because I was working in Milan on my own collection. So after Bottega Veneta, I started my own collection, which was called The Flesh. I was working with it on the line with a partner, a girl named Manuela, who's like kind of my soulmate. And so we were designing this line, and I got a phone call. It was just like a phone call. And I picked up the phone and I was like, hello. And they were like, yeah, this is so-and-so calling from the office of Jennifer Lopez. And I was like, really? Like, where's Jennifer Lopez office calling me? What do we do now? Do we copy something? No. And she was working on a movie, which at that time was, I think it was Made in Manhattan, if you remember that movie.
Right.
And they were looking for someone to design clothes for the movie. And they saw some of my lookbooks, they saw some of my work in the past, and they thought that it would be perfect for that connection. So that's kind of how it works, you know. It's a really, really honest process for me. And as I've worked in this sector for so many years, I'm kind of somehow detached from the idea that these are celebrities, because it is just work for me. And it's exciting, I guess, when you look at it from the outside or an outside perspective. But at the end of the day, I'm still in the office now. You know, I'd rather be in my office working and get the work done and move on. The process for me is that, you know, I love what I do. Celebrity happens to be a part of it. But the process for me is not only about that as well.
So do you have Jennifer Lopez and P. Diddy in your phone?
I do, actually. I do.
Can you share those with me after the call?
I will do that. Puff, listen, Puff was the of all, I mean, I've worked in many places, I've worked with many people, and that be celebrities, and I've dressed Lauryn Hill, you know, I've done Erykah Badu. So I've worked with celebrities at many levels, and they're real people just like we are, you know? And I always say that I learned the most working with Sean Combs than any of them. And I tell you why. He's first of all, he can sell you an empty trash bag. So he's super clever. But it was a different world for me. Like I said, when I started in luxury goods. I knew that world. I knew hip hop. I knew the music. I knew the genre. The product was something very different from me. So it wasn't something that I knew. It wasn't something that I somehow was prepared to work in. But when he called me because I came from the luxury sector. And I don't know, you know, I was able to watch this guy, and he's just amazing. He was like, I don't know, he took me, you know, in terms of mindset and process to places that I hadn't expected to go. And contrary to what many people think, you know, about what we see and what we read in the papers, he's like the most incredible businessman. He really is. I mean, it's a super process. And you know, you can't knock Bad Boy. You know, you look at what was created coming out of Bad Boy, you know, back when we were listening to it, it's still valid today. So that was an exciting process.
Well, I think Jennifer Lopez and P. Diddy need to come on Unscripted. I'm just saying. So I'll shoot you my number afterwards. Let's make that happen.
All right, we can work that out.
And I enjoyed.
Well, and while we got Andy on, Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your photography business? Because I know you got a business that you're passionate about as well.
Yeah, but real quick, I did want to say back to the Sean Combs era. I enjoyed watching. I don't know, Aaron, if you had seen it, but there was a documentary created. I'm not sure who produced that, but the documentary created, and you know, of course, my motivation was to watch it to see Ed, but the whole thing, it was really fascinating. It was an interesting process.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
So hold up. You were on a documentary. Is this on like Netflix? Can I go dial this up tonight?
No, it was a documentary. What he was doing is, I think at that time it was something like 20 years of Sean John.
Yeah.
And so it was a crazy process. Once again, I always find myself in these situations, and they come up to me one day and they were like, okay, well, we're going to do a documentary, and you have to sign the non-disclosure agreements, blah, 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 blah. And they kind of filmed us for the entire process, through the creative process and through the building of this show. And the show was at Cipriani. It was like kind of this major show. And I was working, because I was developing a lot of the stuff in Italy. I was going back and forth between Italy and New York at the time. So it was essentially a reality, not in that sense, but it was a reality television. A reality program, which kind of followed the path of the creation of this show. I actually did one for Jennifer as well. I'm not sure if they're still online, but I'm sure they can be found somewhere.
I'm gonna look it up, but I also have to open the door because we have another guest. This is a BHS house party, so hang on. I got another little surprise up my sleeve. Hang on.
Unbelievable.
There we go.
No.
So, ladies and gentlemen, listen. Once again, this is video and audio. So those listening on audio, joining us, and she's gonna have to give us her title because I'm probably gonna screw it up. Joining us is the wonderful Miss Laura Garrett, which is now probably something else. So tell us.
No, it's totally not. I kept my name, so that's all good. All good. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Joining us is our friend from San Diego, correct?
Live
from San Diego. So you guys, we're all in all kinds of time zones right now.
Seriously.
But joining us, and please tell us, because I know you're at Taylor, right?
TaylorMade.
Right?
Okay, TaylorMade
Golf.
Golf.
Please tell us about yourself, because I'm going to screw it all up otherwise.
Oh gosh, this was not supposed to be about me, Aaron. That was the point. Like I was calling for the Eddie Fest. I got my invitation to the Eddie Fest, and I said, okay, here, I'll be there.
Well, that was a Laura Fest.
It's better than the Fire Fest. Like, can we just agree on that? Like, we're doing better than the Fire Fest already. We have like 4 people here, so it's good.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Yeah, you said I'm in San Diego. That's where I am with my husband and 2 little humans. And I work in human resources for TaylorMade Golf, which is headquartered here as well. And I've been there for a long time.
There you go. And Laura and I used to be about 8 miles away when we went off to college. I don't know how many people from Bedford know that, and we ran into each other maybe twice. But
I know.
We were about
always
8 miles away.
That. We were so close.
At Kenyon, me at Mount Vernon, and here we are today.
Literally saw each other a couple times, which is very different from when we were growing up and our houses were like 5 blocks apart from each other. And Aaron, I still like to tell my kids, I actually just told them this story recently because my daughter, who's now in 5th grade, she started, their school starts them in instruments in 4th, and she started off playing saxophone and then complained that it was too heavy for her. She's a midget of a little child. And so she switched to violin this year, but she said she debated playing cello, but she decided that was just way too huge and she didn't think she'd ever be able to carry it. And I was like, well, and you maybe only did this once, but in my head, you did it a bunch of times. I'm like, well, what you need is an Aaron Conrad, because we would walk to school together and I would carry his trumpet and he would carry my cello, because it's a big ass instrument. It's heavy.
Wow.
So
I don't even remember that. That is awesome.
Honestly, it may have been one time, but in my head, it was like every single day. So let's not break that belief, because I like to think that, it was just, you were just my hero every day.
See there? It all comes
that is
back
awesome.
around.
So Vicky Magi was, and now it's Takai, was also going to join us, but she got tied up. But she was going to join us because she was going to talk a little bit. We were talking about band yesterday, and I don't know if I want to put this out in the public that we were all in band, but we'll do it. And so
put it out there.
We were trying to remember, Eddie, what was your instrument? What was your instrument? Was it the trumpet?
I was French horn.
Yes.
The French horn.
I was a French horn. I was a terrible French horn player. No, I wasn't a terrible French horn player. I was lazy and absolutely lazy. My head was like completely somewhere else. But that was my excuse to actually stay in band, and because it was cool to be in band. Whether other people thought so or not, it was actually cool. And actually, that was a part of the creative process as well. I probably could. Most of the major memories, obviously, and there's so many that I had during that period were based on those groups, you know, whether they be choir or band. Andy, of course, was like right around the corner from me, so he was a part of my like everyday stroll, you know. Me and
Yeah.
Did he carry your cello?
I would have.
He would have.
He would have. So we were like right down the street from each other. So that was, you know, I saw him like, you know, in Crossing every day.
Well, man,
Wow.
this is so fun to see all four of your faces. It really is. I mean, this is supposed to be kind of a like, Eddie, this is your life type moment. So I just wanted to surprise you. I know there was so many people that couldn't wait to see your face, hear your story, and tell you our stories from our time with Eddie. And I have a Sean Berry story that I don't know how long you all are going to stay on, but I do have a Sean Berry story that if you do drop off, I have a Sean Berry story that will rock your world.
I want to hear that story.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'll tell it before we get off. I promise.
Okay.
And if you do drop off, just watch the video later. I'm not trying to pump my own podcast, but listen to it because I promise you, I will tell it before we get off of here because you all will very much appreciate the story that I have told for many years now, and it's crazy. It's wild what happened. So anyway, back to Eddie.
I'm so happy to see you. It's, you know, all four of you guys, but Laura, you know, you were so amazing.
Oh my gosh. Well, likewise.
No,
I was just thinking as we
really.
were getting on this, like, Eddie, this is going to be the love fest. Like, Eddie's just been like the coolest kid in school from the get-go. And I was just thinking, man, like you were so much cooler than the rest of us. And yet the best part was that you didn't act it in a way that was like off-putting to anybody. We all just like loved Eddie. So
I was raised well. I was raised
Mama
well.
B.
Yeah.
Mama B.
Mama B. Mama B.
Well, and honestly, I think it's pretty amazing that, again, so I've been trying to get Laura to come on and tell her story, you know, for quite a while, and she wouldn't do it for me. I carried her cello, Eddie. I carried her cello.
Carried her cello.
And she came on for you. So.
Well, thank you.
Well, and I had the added bonus of Andy. I didn't know that we were going to get to see him too. So that's amazing. This is so nice, you guys.
How long did you say you've been away? When did you move?
I moved to California in 95 maybe, but I was in Northern California first and then have been in San Diego since 2002. So,
Okay.
I mean, to this day, I will still very much say that I'm an Ohioan, but at this point I've lived in California longer than I ever lived in Ohio, but it's just like identity-wise, it's not the same. So
when I start to think about that, I think to myself, I can't, I mean, every time someone asks me how long I've been in Europe, I'm always like, maybe 10 years or something. Like, 25 years, it's just crazy.
that's because none of us want to admit that we all have like hit the mid-century mark. We're like in complete denial.
I know. We're proper adults, actually, huh?
Sure.
Right. But I think we would all agree, and again, fashion passed me by, and that's again why I liked hanging out with Eddie on Mondays and having him tell me about the Agora. Laura, were you allowed to go to the Agora? You probably weren't.
No, well, I remember going like twice, and I'm not sure how I got away with it and why I was allowed to go, but yes, I do remember going and then kind of like ending things playing modern English, but I don't think I was, maybe more than once or twice.
See, if I would have gone to the Agora, I probably would have got off 92.3. But I was on Pop 40 and Eddie and Debbie Gibson. And then Eddie told me I had to get off of There's More to Life Than 92.3. It's one of the greatest quotes I've ever had in my life. But that being said,
put that on a t-shirt.
What's that?
We're gonna have to put that on a t-shirt.
Hey, you're the designer. You probably got connect. I can't even get t-shirts for my own podcast, which I'm going to tell you about at some point during this podcast. I'm going to tell you about that, but it's a whole nother topic that is very sad and disappointing, and it has to do with our culture today. But be that as it may, I was always so, Eddie was so cool. He always had the coolest trends. the coolest outfits. I think we see it in that 80s picture that I posted today, man. Eddie was on the edge, and I'm over there wearing my starter jacket from the Cavs. And like Eddie was cool. And so that's, I always appreciated the Agora stories on Monday. And I tried to live through you on that, like I've said before, but also your fashion. I think we all would probably agree, all four of us, or three of us would agree that your fashion in high school was already advanced. Like you had an eye, and I think you've found your sweet spot in life clearly. Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, like I said when we were talking before, I think style and the process it comes from within. And people always ask me that oftentimes in interviews, where does your creative process come from? And I'm always like, I don't know. It could be sand, it could be a color of the table, it could be a wall. But if I have to think back to what actually aided that process, there's so many things, I mean, she said modern English, once again, music, music was a part of that. The Cure was a part of that, if you have to consider that, I was, a Black guy in Cleveland, Ohio, listening to The Cure, which we know this wasn't, in our time that, I should have been listening to, which I was also as well. So, my feelers were always open. I never necessarily said no to things. I would always be interested to see it and try it and know that if I decided that I didn't like it or wasn't interested in it, at least I tried it. So that's how my creative process worked. And I, the style, what was it? It was the people that surrounded me. It was my family. It was, there were so many things. It was the books I was looking at. It was everything mixed together, I think you just find your space, when you find your space and it's your space, then you roll with it. And, if you really think about it, I'm going to talk like from a technical style perspective, but the 80s, you guys, was really kind of the last period where there was a sense that there was something really new happening. Of course, within the 80s, whether it be music or style, it arrives from something else. We went from a period in the 70s when it was like no bra and this and that. And in the 80s was really about creativity. It was about creativity in so many things. It was hair and it was music and it was all of these things. And we look at it now and we're like, oh my God, we see it come back around and we're like, we did that. But we really did that because we were that. We were part of creating that. So as style is 360 and it comes back around, I can actually say, through being born in 1970 and living kind of through the 80s and the 90s, we were a part of something that was like super special. And today, the music you're hearing, a lot of the fashion that you're seeing is regurgitated. And of course, digital and the internet made that all possible because things rise to the surface so fast that before that, our pre-time, we didn't have that. We had to go to libraries to do our research. We had to touch, we had to feel, we had to go out, we had to see. The research was a different process. Now they just press a button and everything pops up. So I think my process was the same process as yours, and you guys inspired me to be what I am. So here I am, and I'm still learning every day, by the way. Creatively.
We're super proud of you. I don't want to speak for everybody else on this call, and I know there's others that were trying to join. Honestly, I had a pretty extensive invite list, but all had. And again, this is supposed to be a Eddie, this is your life type moment. But there was a lot of folks that I knew that you had connection with. There were some people that reached out to me and said, "When's it going to be on?" I think they think this is live, like I'm that like I'm that advanced. But there's so many people throughout that you touched throughout your entire time, even in just little old Bedford. It was special, and I think the 80s was special. My kids don't understand, and honestly, I look at it. My son once asked me when he was in like middle school, he said, was it harder growing up when you were my age than it is now? And I said, it wasn't harder, it was different. And I said, the difference is I made choices, I made decisions, I did things in my life that I have to live with the rest of my life in my own memory. Like I have to replay them in my own memory. For them, it's right here. It's on their phone.
Totally.
Right? Like you make a mistake today and it'll be digitally recorded forever on a cloud somewhere. And that's different. That's like radically different
Totally.
than when we were growing up, and thank God for that, right? Like I'm glad we didn't have phones, because it would have been a whole nother world.
I'd be in a lot of trouble probably.
And there's a knock at the door, so I got to go get it. Hang on. I think I have to let somebody else in. Hold on.
A door knock. I love a door knock.
This one should be fun. I don't know if you can see it or not. And I know he's actually doing a show at the moment. And dude, like, I think he's running off the stage to come in and say hello real quick. And there he is. So joining us,
hey, little brother,
podcast, along with everybody else we've already introduced, is Eddie's brother, the great Billy Buchanan. And he's actually stepped off stage long enough to say hello.
Hello.
You gotta love technology. Billy, you there?
the connection's back. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
What's up? Hey, are you there?
I'm here.
How come I can't see you guys?
You gotta love technology. Billy's trying to connect, and for those watching, you can see his face is frozen at the moment. For those listening, Eddie's brother, who is a year older. Eddie, is that right?
He's a year older. Yeah, almost
a year
exactly
older, but no less loved by the rest of us. His brother is joining us, like I think backstage at the moment on a break in between sets. So that's
frozen.
So, we'll see if we can get Eddie or Billy back on, but he was excited to join us. When's the last time you guys physically saw each other? How much do you make it over the States?
When did we physically see each other? It's been almost a year, because when I was going to go last time, that's when the COVID pandemic kind of took off. And so last time I was in Florida. Usually it depends on the period. You know, I try to get to America at least 2 times a year. And when I go, obviously I go to where my mom is. So she was in Atlanta, now she's in Florida, where my brother Bill is. So we all kind of meet there. And then I have to stop in New York usually. If I stop in New York, I combine it with work and holiday, then I do that as well. I don't get back as much as I used to. It's kind of been a super busy period. I would like to get back more often than I do, but it's quite difficult, and especially now, the traveling right now is like.
Hi.
There you are.
There he is.
So Billy has joined us. I think he's on a better connection now.
Better connection,
Billy
man.
Buchanan, just entertainer extraordinaire. Billy, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself to the unscripted crowd?
Yeah, I'm the better son of William and Deborah Buchanan. What's up, little brother? What are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm in the middle. I have a show. I'm in the middle of it. I'm on my break.
Okay.
We planned this, man. We plotted and schemed.
Yeah, schemers. Schemers. It's like, this is your life.
Right. So how's the interview going?
So, I mean, I haven't seen these guys in ages. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I know.
So wow, Aaron. So like 30 years later, what's going on with you?
I don't know. I just got some little podcast I'm trying to keep going.
That's awesome, man.
So my favorite memory, and one of the reasons why we don't have Billy on, is, were you guys in a band or no? Did you do a band?
Who, Ed and I?
Not band, like not Bedford band, but like, were you
Bill
in a band?
Bill had several bands.
Yeah.
I wasn't a part of that band though. I wasn't a part of the band. Sean Barrett was a part of the band. Andy used to help the band.
Yeah.
There were some other guys in the band, but you know, when I tell you this story, and Bill's gonna laugh at this story, huh?
Oh God. where are you going? What is this?
No, because when you're in high school, and we're so close, we're both Geminis, we're exactly 1 year and 2 days apart. And so, as similar as we are, in terms of Gemini and character and creative process, in high school, I used to see Bill and like run the other way.
Literally. No, like literally. Dude would walk by me and pretend like he didn't know me. I was like, are you serious? So stupid.
That's my brother. And I'm like,
it was so dumb. It was so dumb. And we
no,
go home and listen.
Yeah, but
yo, for the record, I never did that to you, ever.
You were the older brother. You couldn't do that, But I mean, I have two older brothers, and I was very lucky to have two older brothers and very close first cousins who always kind of protected me. And I obviously, as we get older, I'm very, very lucky to have, two brothers that were so entangled and so close, so the time, moves forward and you become an adult and but it was college years, I had to have fun with that.
And it was funny, man, because like we would listen to all the same music. Like Ed was the big, I don't know if you guys have talked about this since he's like putting me all under the bus. So we'd go home and Ed was listening to like The Cure and like, he was into all that dark stuff. He used to wear all black and stuff and thought he was just like so mysterious and all that crap. And so I was listening to like Prince. As a matter of fact, here's a great story. Ed, do you remember this? Mom came to me and said, your brother, Ed, and your cousin Linda want to go see Michael Jackson. Yeah. And I'm getting them tickets. She looked me dead in the eye and she said, do you want to go? And I looked at her and I said, no, I'm a Prince fan.
And you missed it.
Dude, hey, Andy. What's up, dude? And dude, I freaking missed that concert, the Victory freaking tour.
Yeah.
Because of that nonsense.
Yeah, that was the last Jackson's tour.
Stupid, man.
Yeah.
Stupidest thing.
He's not. Billy's not bitter at all.
Dude, I don't regret much, bro. I don't regret much, but I remember that crap, man.
I just remember Billy loving Tears for Fears.
Yes!
And their first album. I mean, the bass, right? He would be
Still
sitting back there and talking about. He loved him some Tears for Fears.
Still do, man. I still
all
do,
time
man.
One of the best bands, flat down.
Amazing. Yeah, I still listen to them.
Here.
What?
Well, and I think another band that we're all gonna now we could get into 80s music, but I think another band that we're all gonna like, which it's gonna surprise you because I didn't play them on 92.3, but New Order was it, right? Can we all agree that New Order was,
no, I wasn't into that.
I think our friend Andy introduced me to New Order at Richmond Brothers on the DJ set that he would play.
On the DJ set.
So good.
No, I wasn't into them, man.
You missed
out. When you're still missing out.
Wasn't my thing, man. But Tears for Fears all freaking day. I own everything, dude. Everything.
I remember. Playing the bass in the back, you would try to get every one of those riffs down. But and there was another guest that was going to try to join us. I'm not sure if she's going to be able to. But the first concert I ever went to, Eddie, do you know which one it was?
New Edition.
Do you remember this?
New Edition.
New Edition. Can you name the three groups that were at the New Edition concert?
Were you at that show? New Edition, UTFO, and the Fat Boys.
No, it wasn't Fat Boys. It wasn't Fat Boys. Who was the third one?
Wait, UTFO. It was the Fat Boys.
No.
Dude, were you at Front Row Theater?
Billy's getting angry.
Aaron. Yes, wait. Front Row Theater, right?
It wasn't. Eddie, do you remember who the third one was?
I don't remember who the third one was.
Roxanne Shante.
It was my first concert. It was New Edition, UTFO.
Yeah.
Jesse Johnson Review.
Jesse Johnson.
No, that was dude. Wait. Time out, dude. Time out. Time to freak out. That was a different tour then, man. Because when we saw him, Ed, didn't you go with me to see him?
Yeah, I did.
It was New Edition, UTFO, and the Fat Boys.
But
remember that, Ed?
I don't remember that.
Anyway, but I would have rather been at the freaking Jesse Johnson concert. Holy cow.
So for those listening that may not know, and I've used this for trivia questions forever.
Here you go.
And we lost Laura. She's done. She's out. But Jesse Johnson, does anybody know who the heck Jesse Johnson is? Because I didn't know until that night.
The Time, bro.
The Time. The guitar player from the time. So when Morris Day says Jesse, now Jerome, on that song, he's talking about Jesse Johnson.
So, dude,
there's some history.
So, Aaron,
here is this song he played. I really don't.
Aaron, I'm about to tell you. Here was this hit. I wanna be your man, baby.
Bonus material. Is this gonna get me in some kind of violation if I put it out? Like, am I gonna get a call, or they're gonna block this because we got
exactly
copyright infringement?
Eddie, what was the other thing that happened at that concert? Do you remember?
Hey, I don't know, but I gotta go.
Love you, Billy. Thanks for stopping by, man.
Bye, Bill.
Bye, little brother.
Enjoy.
Love you, man. Hey, Ed, I'm gonna see Mom tomorrow. I might call you.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Those are exclusive moments on Unscripted right there. We get to share the Buchanan family reunions. The other question was, Eddie, what happened in that concert? Do you remember what happened to all of us as we were standing up for that concert? We were standing on the back of the seats and the entire row fell. Do you remember that?
Oh.
We took out a whole row.
I can't believe you remember these things.
I remember. I still have the T-shirt. No, I'm just kidding. I have a picture of myself in the T-shirt because it was New Edition. And I still love New Edition. Do you have New Edition in your Rolodex?
Of course I do.
All right, so we'll get them on Unscripted too. Well, this was a ton of fun.
Of course I do.
Should I tell the Sean Berry story now or no?
Yeah.
All right,
I'm dying to hear it, and I've got to run to a meeting, but I'm totally going to go to it late because I need to hear the Sean Berry story.
Okay, so I'll go as brief as I can. I won't remember exactly which city it was in because it's been a while, but I had to go to someplace in Maryland. I want to say it was Rockville, Rockford, something with an R. And I flew in, and we were doing a grand opening in like your classic retail strip mall type place, right? I go doing this thing. I went with my boss, and it was lunchtime. And so we started to walk into, there was, again, classic retail, couple of restaurants in the parking lot type place. We started going to this burger joint. Don't even remember what it was. I had my hand on the doorknob. Like, I won't forget this. I had my hand on the doorknob, and she goes, you know what? I want salsa and chips. And there was a Mexican place right next door. I'm like, cool. Whatever. Okay, fine. So I let go of the doorknob. We go over to the Mexican place, open the door. We walk in, we're standing there waiting for a table, and a busboy walks by, and we're standing there. He looks at me, drops his bus pan, and shatters, like all the glasses shatter. And I'm like, who is this dude? I mean, it was Sean Berry in Maryland. What am I doing in Maryland? Right. And not to go into a lot of detail, but he was in a bad way. He had been through a lot in his life. Wow. Clearly he's working as a busboy. His sister lived in Maryland, and he was living in her basement, just trying to get his life back together. So the guy walks up, he hugs me, and I'm like, who is this dude hugging me? I don't know who this is. Like, what is going on? He stepped back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is Sean Berry. Anyone listening to this podcast, you have to understand, and all four of us, I think, would probably agree, he was the man. Sean Berry was the guy. He was our everything, right? He could do Michael Jackson. He was uber talented, just an incredible guy. So we connect. We go out to dinner that night. And I just wanted to buy him a steak. I mean, he had been in, like I say, he's in a pretty bad way. We go out to dinner, take him out to dinner. And then the funniest part, you four will appreciate more than anybody. He takes me to the local high school. We drive to the local high school after dinner, and we're sitting on the hood of this rental car that I had. And he's looking over this high school, and he's just reliving all this high school memories. Like, it was like, man, that's all he has left. And it broke my heart. Back then, we didn't have cell phones and stuff like that. I just had a pager. So I gave him the store that I had gone out there to was they had these 30-minute phone cards. And so I gave him like a stack of them. And I said, just call me on this call me, leave me a voicemail, and tell me where you're at. So we just kept in touch that way. I'd call him back if I could. we kept in touch that way. Then he called me and he said one night, right after I got married. So we had no money. I mean, we were newly married, newlyweds. He called me and he said, I'm at the bus station. They stole my ticket, but I want to go to Miami. And if I go to Miami, the reason I'm going is they have this program down there and a homeless shelter that if I live there, I want to try to get clean and everything. And then once I get clean, as long as I can prove that and I get a job, they'll pay for my first 3 months rent. And at the time, I'm like, I don't know if this is real or not, but I just love the guy and I care about him and I want to do right by him. So I go drive down to downtown Cleveland because I was living in Bedford still at the time. Drive downtown Cleveland, buy him a ticket at the Greyhound, and they wire it over to him, like however they do that. And, I said, hey, send me. So he starts mailing me letters from this shelter. So everything that he had said was going to be true. And the last letter I ever received from him was that he had done well. He was moving out. He got a job, and I want to say it was like Whole Foods or something like that. He had secured a job, set up an apartment, and then he was gone. So that happened. And then several years ago, I tried to look him up again. And now he's, as far as I know, and if anybody hears this that knows or can help, he's in Miami. And what happens is, and actually, if you you can search his name in Miami-Dade County and you'll find him. And what happens is about every, this is a really sad story. Unfortunately, I wish I had a better story, but he, every about 3 weeks or month or so, he'll get arrested. And I think he does it so he can get a good night's sleep and a good meal. And it's always like small, it's nothing bad. It's always something small, like purchasing drugs or panhandling or something like that. And I think he just knows the system, and it breaks my heart. It really, really breaks my heart. When I post this on my blog, I'll post pictures of the two of us together. And I put this out a few years ago because I actually tried to go get to him. So to give you guys an idea, and Laura, you're shaking your head, you might remember this. You remember that?
I do. Now that you tell the story, I remember you sharing it with me at some point, and that you were trying to figure out how to find him.
I was trying to get to him. So I mailed him a letter that ended up coming back to me, and I was hoping it would hit right when he would do his like 3 to 4 week, visit because they kick him out. They let him stay for like 24, 48 hours a week. And then they kick him out back on the streets again. That's just the system that he is in. And it's heartbreaking to me that a guy that had so much promise, and I know the guy that I met in Maryland that night, and I know how much he still wanted to have, to live life and be on a call like the four of us are on right now. It'll forever break my heart. I love that guy. And yeah. And I don't know how that stuff happens, man. I don't know why. And I always tell everybody, if I got a burger that day and my boss didn't want chips and salsa, I never run into him. We never run into each other. It just happened. And, but I believe it happened for a reason, man. It's crazy how small the world is.
Yeah.
So that's the show.
Life, is sometimes a card drawn, and we're super lucky and blessed to be able to have this conversation and be in the position to actually, recount a story that we've had. Everyone doesn't have the same possibilities, and Sean was like, if there was someone that you could probably in 1988 say who's going to be an enormous success,
right?
It was Sean Berry.
Yeah.
Sean was charming. He was handsome. He was a great diver. He was a great musician. He had all the qualities. He checked all the boxes, and life sometimes takes those curveballs. I'm hoping that he's okay. I'm gonna look him up as well.
Yeah. Maybe somebody watching will have a connection to Aaron. So I think it's a story worth telling.
Yeah.
Tons of people care about him.
I don't know why we went for chips and salsa, not a burger that day, but hopefully somebody finds this, and you never know where this stuff finds itself. And I actually reached out to a jail or a prison minister that was down there, trying to get him to go visit and just see if I just needed a connection. I needed a phone call. I needed to tell him what I wanted to tell him was that we love him. That's what I think he needed to hear, is that we love him. All four of us probably on this meeting, we love that guy, and you know, and there's a bright future for him. I still believe that didn't happen by chance. So I hope.
Absolutely.
Not the greatest story, but it is a true story.
No, that is a good story.
Yeah. So, well, Laura, I know you've got to go to a meeting.
I do.
Thank you so
I would
much for
love to
hopping
stay
on.
with
It
you
was
guys
awesome.
all afternoon, but it was amazing to see you all. Thanks for the invitation, Aaron.
Thanks, Laura.
And Andy, Eddie, so good to see you. Aaron, thanks for hosting. We get to do this again sooner rather than later.
Well, you're always welcome back on. We still have to do a follow-up with yours. I'm not gonna let you off the hook that easy. So
Okay.
Thanks for popping on.
Love you guys. Bye.
Take care.
Andy, it was great for you to have you on as well. Thank you for popping on. I'm gonna cover one item with Eddie one-on-one here in a minute, just to finish out this one. But man, it was good to have you on. And Beth O'Conkey was my other guest that right. I mean, that would have completed the Richmond Brothers circle.
Yeah.
Right. So no, I put out invites, and it's my fault. I waited too long, but it was kind of a last minute. But Beth wanted to be here. I know she really did, and that would have completed the Richmond Brothers circle for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll give
Awesome.
her Andy, let's be in touch, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw Billy about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago. He did a local, real small gig at a church that he had some connection with, like in Madison, Ohio.
Right on.
So I got to visit him and watch all the same band drama that happened back then. The dynamics are the same. It's crazy. And like I took a 30-year time warp and went in there, just different players, but Billy.
Exactly.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. But
Andy, before you exit, what are your links? And where are you, one, and two, what are your links? Because I know you have a photography business.
Yeah, I'm in Hudson, Ohio, so not far from home. We went away to Arizona for a couple years and then came back. Photography, Andrew Jordan Photography, Andrew Jordan Photo on Instagram. I'm pretty low key on self-promotion. As far as my photography stuff, I call myself a recovering wedding photographer. I had 14 years, probably like 13 too many of that. No, but now it's like commercial. I just kind of generally call it commercial, whether it's some client headshots, some corporate events, construction for builders and stuff like it. Just events for other organizations. It's kind of all over the place. Anything that's not a wedding that has to do with people and products. It's very much like I said, it's not artistic, but I like it. It's afforded a lot of flexibility in our family dynamics, and that's been priceless. That's why I can, pop off and take my kid to bowling when she needs to. And so it's been a good balance. What's that?
Not be invited in.
Well,
It might be a COVID thing, right? It's probably a COVID thing. You're probably not allowed.
Yes and no. She had her first meet earlier this week, and she didn't do so well. And then so somehow the presence of a parent may have, whatever. I don't know. It's all good.
It's awesome.
I got to be here.
Well, I will put all that in anybody listening to this. This is my guy, and if you're in that area and looking for a guy, then please look that up. I will put that in the blog post so you can see it and click to it and get to my guy, Andy. It was awesome to see you. Thanks so much for popping in on us. I really appreciate this.
Thanks for putting it together.
I have pictures taken by Andy as well.
There we go.
There you go. Awesome.
All right, brothers. Thank you. God bless.
Good to see you.
Talk to you soon, Andy.
Yes, sir.
All right.